Yeah. I think kind of what you said, what I said, it's like this is just as much for us as it is
Mhm.
for whoever may or may not watch this thing. Like, you know, and so I think I'd like to jump into the topic.
Yeah, do it.
And what really inspired this is, so for anyone who does watch this, my recent heartbreak and the massive grief I'm going through, it's very much still. Um, it's been almost a month. It's just nuts. It's been like 3.5 weeks. Yeah, I think 3 weeks officially, but it all the pain, and you came out, man. Like, getting back to what's important, community, friendship.
Yeah.
You came out. I can't thank you enough. You were like a mangel, as I call it, a man angel. You flew in, and it wasn't just for me, but I believe that was a big part of why you came out. I mean, I
Mm.
know it was because I was just like, hey, you're like, dude, I'll be there, and I feel like that's what a good friend does. So not only am I grateful for that, it helped me get through the hardest part so far of this whole process, and just this week, you know, we touched base, and I'm like, dude, let's finally do this podcast.
Yeah.
I finally came out on Facebook with just what I'm going through and stopping trying to have this so perfectly, put together piece, and I don't want to be on social media anymore. And I think I realized part of it was fear,
Mm.
and I didn't even really know it. It was just like, nah, I don't want to do it. And so for me, this is we talked about focusing on grief and uh, essentially heartbreak, but this can extend to general loss in just being human.
Yeah.
And so we have some topics and some questions. And so to kind of summarize, really why we're doing this is we're going to hope that this inspires anyone watching, that you're not alone, inspire someone to learn something, to feel a part, of something, to see somebody showing up. Joe's not going through it right now. I am. Joe's been alive on this planet longer than I have. So you're going to have a lot of pearls and a lot of things to share, even though you're not in it. You don't need to be, but we all can relate.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully this inspires someone and teaches someone something, one learning, one shred of hope, one pearl of wisdom and, connection. That's my goal. Do you have anything to add?
No, I can really concur with that.
Yeah.
Just the intent behind today's podcast, especially, and bringing this up, just back to our desire just to be open and vulnerable and authentic in this. And this is just an uncomfortable but very real situation that we all go through.
My
And
whole nervous system's like, yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just an opportunity to dialogue on it and talk about it and use it for growth and connection.
Amen. Yeah. And that's like the why of this podcast. And yeah, I mean, there's a high likelihood I might shed some tears. And I think for me too, it's just about not hiding, showing up. Like this topic, this podcast, this month, it's just shining, living, being seen, seeing others, and really stepping up. Like, I think a cool little side note is that you and I went through trainers training last year, which is a 3-week intensive public speaking training that lights up your baggage so much. And we were staying together at an Airbnb during that. And, I think even this is a part of me really, well, I know it is, a part of me really embodying why I signed up for that, is using my voice, being vulnerable, being seen, speaking out, and facing whatever silly fear comes up of what somebody might think or not think. And it's like, well, that's not why I'm here on this earth right now. I'm here to do a lot more. And so that just came up. And it means a lot to me. And so shall we jump in?
Yeah, jump in.
Because, yeah, I mean, the what is the grief and the heartbreak. And so I'm really mindful here to respect the woman that I recently ended things with. So certain people are going to know who she is. And my goal is just to focus on me and to respect her and focus on my challenges and my learnings and not share any details that could in any way um, put her in a situation that I wouldn't want to be in, given that this is public. So it's just more about the general learnings and my
Yeah.
process. So that's important for me, for her, if she ever sees this as well. Um, that means a lot to me. So this is totally on the fly here. So I've got some topics and questions. I think I'm going to start it. And then if you want to add whatever comes up for you, and then we can just see how this goes. We're going to try to hit just about a half an hour or so to respect people's time. Um, this is pretty wild. So, all right. So my first question is, what has been my biggest challenge or struggle
Mhm.
in this last month? And there's so many, as we all know, going through grief. It's just like a flood. But I think my biggest, I wrote down a few things because I couldn't really get to one, but one of the things that I've had to face that I haven't faced in almost a decade is facing the, I'm a very sensitive guy, as
Mhm.
most people who will watch this know because they know me probably. Um, I feel very deeply, and I learned recently, which was actually a gift from the relationship I was in, is that I'm a highly sensitive person. And so I've been learning about that, and I'm very high on that scale. And so one of my biggest challenges, and those who know me know I've had a pattern of when my relationships have ended, I feel very, very deeply. So my grief hits harder than some people I know, in ways where they're like, wow, you really, really felt a lot there. I don't know if I go that deep even when I'm in that situation. And so my biggest challenge has been not having this much emotional pain in almost a decade, like a roughly 7, 8 years. And with all the tools, like I do coaching, I've learned so much. I've traveled the world. I teach stuff. I've grown immensely, and I haven't had to utilize what I've learned and level up like this in probably 8 years. And so my biggest challenge has just been the grief, the overwhelming emotional pain and sadness and loss and the destruction of a dream. And, and one thing too that's come up too is some people, they're like, well, how long are you guys together? And it was like officially about 8 months, 8, 9 months, depending on how you look at it. But we spent a lot of time together. So if you take people that are in like full-time jobs and how much time they're actually with each other, you could equate it to a 2 to 3 year relationship or something. Um, and so that's been one of my biggest challenges, is applying all the tools and techniques I know and teach while not shutting off the grief, while fully embodying
Mhm.
it, and finding that teeter-totter of use all the tools I know, feel unconditionally, don't let that take me down, because this is so immensely painful.
Mhm.
And just facing that head on while growing and letting others support me in that. Woo! I got really good at that doing it alone. And in this situation, that wasn't an option. I had to bring people in because it was so painful. So you and a few others, I think just facing the pain and letting others see me
Yeah.
in that. Those are probably the two biggest ones. And it's been unbearable, man, at times. It's been unbearable. I mean, the tears, the sobbing, the crying, the pain. And wildly enough, so much cool stuff has happened.
Mhm.
And, there's like a picture everyone knows, like the 5 stages of grief, right? You know, and it's this smooth line, and it's like BS, man. I found this picture online. I could show it, but I don't want to go through all the screen share stuff right now. But it's like what you thought you were going to experience, and I've in a way never opened my heart this much.
Mhm.
I mean, in ways not in a long time, but in ways her and I connected that were so beautiful.
Yeah.
And we saw each other in such amazing ways. There was an opening that made the pain more intense in ways that I think I've ever experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the picture of the stages of grief. It's like what you thought and then what it is. And it's just like craziness, right? And just that right there has been the hardest thing to face because it's been so long and I haven't felt pain this much in so long. So I think I'll leave it there. Curious what your thoughts are, questions, ideas, or your own experience with
Yeah,
that.
piggybacking on that, just my, I think it's some of my own experience, and then just being reminded of aspects of this through participating and being alongside you during this experience. It was also just the isolation, the thoughts of isolation, the feelings of isolation that can come in that separation, in that pain, in that in the grief process, when there is a separation. I mean, fundamentally, I feel like grief is a process of separating, from something that, whether it was an identity, a feeling, a relationship, whatever that is, it's like a stepping into a new reality, stepping in a new space, place, and time that shows up differently than what we thought. And that process of that separating and seeing ourselves as whatever what am I to think about that, as a item or whatever, separate from that thing, is so painful. And I think it's very surprising as an emotion, because of its veracity, because of how intense it can be, and how much it comes from. I mean, obviously you can go through seasons of it, but it also can just show up with such force. And I think a question that's always with it is driving a person toward further isolation, or just kind of a typical emotive feeling that goes along with that grief, is just feeling isolated. And I think that was something I saw again and again. And it's a really neat opportunity too, because as you admitted, you kept looking for community instead of stepping into that isolation, instead of allowing that isolation, instead of choosing to go it alone, which are options. You chose instead to seek community, to be vulnerable, to be authentic with those around you, which is, I think, so courageous, and something we don't talk a lot about in today's culture. There's not a lot of movies that highlight, or even really books that highlight the courage and the bravery it takes to be vulnerable, to be authentic with those around you, to let them see weakness as we perceive it, especially in those states of transition. We perceive our tears and our grief, our sadness, as less than, or weak, and I love changing the script on that, and choosing instead to step into deeper community than we've had with others. Like, there's aspects of our relationship even that have grown so much through this opportunity, to be vulnerable, to be real, to not hide.
Hi, Jay-Z.
and with multiple others too. And I think it's really neat how it points back to our need for community, our need for supporting each other, and for resilient and legitimate friendships, allowing people in and letting that guard down. I think we'll get into this, I'm sure, in a bit too, but that's one of the, I think, in relationships in particular, in our culture anyway, that's all I can speak to, because it's what I know best. It's just, there's I think, a real misinformation and confusion around when people that get together, that they are the only ones that they need, and it becomes like an island of two, and people kind of just subtract into trying to figure out how to operate and take care of everything, inside that unit. And it's just it's so much weight to put on another individual. It's so much pressure to make someone else your whole world, and not in any way saying they aren't the most important person in your life. You don't love them the most. So that's not it. But to step out of community, which is so often what happens in relationship, and it's not till there is a fracture or something in that often that we see that opportunity or need for community and expand again. So yeah, I wanted to touch on that too, because I know that was a theme that kept coming up, and was really meaningful, and now also driving toward growth, and driving toward more authenticity, more vulnerability.
Yeah, that's it's huge, and that is one of my humble learnings. Is
Mm.
that is one of my tendencies. Has been to do that, become an island of two. And that was a part of this process, and I think that kind of gets into one of the other topics is like, what is one of my biggest learnings?
Yeah.
And one of my, I've been talking about this, I mean, shoot, since we met just over a year ago, like 14 months ago. Um, it's amazing how much we've experienced as friends in just
Mm.
14 months. Um, but is that really that community piece,
Yeah.
traveling the world solo, old habits of, having to be such a responsible adult man and just trying to struggle all my health stuff and all these things, all the stories I was running is I learned through a lot of isolation. I learned through a lot of alone time, and it strengthened me in a lot of ways. And one of my biggest learnings just in relationship and out of is how important community is. Oh my gosh. And one of my biggest things is how much I've reached out to people since then and how many people have shown up. I
Mm.
think I have 10 calls, video or phone, with people around the world scheduled right now. This podcast came from this. You visited. I've got seen other people in California, stuff set up, people I haven't seen in years, people just popping out of the woodworks. And it's like, how amazing it is when you show up and you are yourself, even when it's painful and
Mm.
scary, and you're not showing up as strong, which in our line of work is uh can be frightening,
Yeah.
because of the position we hold, and is just how important that is, how nourishing that is, how
Mm.
strengthening that is, how humbling, how joyful, how peaceful it all is. Um, Building it, maintaining it, loving it, being on both sides of the coin of the supporter and the supportee, and maintaining that in relationship is so huge.
Yeah.
So amen to that, dude. Amen. Um, yeah, I think, see, what else on my biggest learning? The community piece. Okay, here's a really cool thing too, man. Like on that part, I've said this to you and I've said it to so many people, uh, is how human nature is that we usually don't change until we feel immense pain or something big happens and
Mm.
we're forced out of our comfort zone so much, which can be fuel if we don't let it take us down, or even if it does, we get just keep getting back up. And all that, like all the pain. And she was living with me, and so she moved back, and so it's now I'm in this home, all these memories, all these things, and it's like, I live on the outskirts of Orange County. I don't live in the heart, so I have to drive usually 10-30 minutes to get to the office for different things. And so there's kind of like a regional, it's easy to just stay here, it's beautiful, but like all the memories here, and it's just, it was hit me hard, and I felt so
Mm.
small, and I felt all that loss and all the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And one of my biggest learnings is in showing up. So that community piece, in just opening up and not hiding, the amount of love and the mirroring people have given to me, the gifts from that of people that I haven't thought of in years,
Yeah.
people I knew for a short time, people I barely even knew. And like the things they've told me
Mm.
and comments they've said and private DMs and, oh my God, the synchronicity just happened. I was just thinking about you, been thinking about you for weeks. It's teaching me again on a much deeper level how much power and love I have, and like getting really clear on my purpose and mission in life, which
Mm.
I mean is huge. And so my biggest learning, I think, above community, which is massive, is my purpose,
Yeah.
and tying that into inspiring people that you're not alone. You can get through anything. How do you do that? Well, let's start doing it. And you can build things beyond what you ever imagined or dreamed.
Mm.
Like your capacity for this life is infinite. And how then do you do that? Like the Tony Robbinses, the Joe Dispenzas, these people, it's like, cool, but how? And I think that's one of my biggest learnings is just, I think I know that is my mission. And this has cracked me open to see that and get back on track and start showing up in ways, this being one of them, that I haven't ever done. So it's really cool.
It is really cool. Despite the, I don't know, the pathway, the journey we often have to take to see that,
Mm-hmm.
the ups and downs, the intense emotion over the past weeks,
Mm-hmm.
the grief, the joy, the insights, but the clarity that comes with that is so incredible if we allow it, if we choose that. And I think that's a really neat part of relationship, and something I appreciate so much about having a community, and you being in my community as well. Is just the having people around you that reflect back those lessons, who
Mm-hmm.
allow you to have space to see the positive in what's going on. And not that we're standing there and also feeling in the sorrow and empathy with that as well while that's happening, but to have mirrors, to have people um, to support you. But again, just I think the key is reflecting back all the amazing wholeness that is innate within you right now is so
Mm-hmm.
huge. I think that's one of the biggest lessons in my life, through pain and sorrow, and feeling broken, feeling less than, feeling absent, going through grief, feeling that separation. It's just going back to that truth of we're whole right now in this moment. And that was an amazing thing to keep experiencing with you, to reflect back, to celebrate, and um, a truth that and regardless of like the journey, saying other things at times, and the pain has so many different, I think, lies and confusions that come with it, and that can be an intense part of having overwhelming emotion. It's just the unsettlingness that cause is in the brain, in the body, um, in the emotional state, and lack of clarity, but continuing to come back to what we have, to our own wholeness, to community, to what we've been gifted, to life, uh, to having another day to make different choices. I think is so incredible, and not diminishing of what you're of grief and what you're experiencing. I think there's an absolute season and a process that has to be felt. I think that's something we're excited to continue communicating in our relationship, and this podcast as well too. Is just the importance of the feelings and the emotions you were feeling in this moment, the importance of the validity of
Mm-hmm.
that pain as it comes up, the validity of that sorrow, of that grief.
Yep.
And being in a community that allows you to experience that and be in that moment without needing it to change, or needing to
Mm-hmm.
change it because it's uncomfortable is huge.
Amen.
So, so big. And
Yeah.
I think that's been a really neat thing for me to witness um, over the last weeks too, is not just our relationship, but how surrounded you are by an amazing community and experiencing other people, giving space, giving support, um, encouraging to feel what is here, what is now, um, not trying to lessen that or devalue that or switch states
Mhm.
because it's uncomfortable for them. Um, I think there's a ton of
Bingo.
huge
That's a big one.
learnings in that.
Yep. That's a big one.
Yeah,
Like not going to people pleasy mode is like, hey, dude, I'm broken right now. I'm raw. I'm a puddle. I'm a mess, and I'm gonna. I need your help, and I'm gonna allow myself to be seen and not change that.
yeah,
And this is what it is. And you're one of the ones that showed up big. My family, you, Shirley, a few people showed up big time. Um, it was amazing. So that all resonates. That
mm.
all lands, and yeah, I think I'm realizing it's already 33 minutes, which
I
is
know.
nuts. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, should we do a part two? Like, and just break this up
Uh,
maybe? I'm not sure. Because there's a lot more to share. What do you think about that? Should we split it up
I think we can.
into two parts?
I think a part two would be great. I do think there's a lot more there, and
Oh,
there's a lot more
oh yeah.
learnings that came up. I was really
Yeah.
interested in just also getting into the
Mm,
opportunity that the down periods of life provide for growing in relationship, maybe and community, and how that is a just an opportunity to step into more connection, um,
yeah.
and and a whole lot of other things that I know we talked about before.
Yeah. I think totally agree. And you know what I'm thinking is because I do want to get into, I know we talked about like, okay, here's the story, here's what's going on. People can, relate, and this is a big topic. And like, what are the changes? What are the things I'm implementing? What are the
Right?
things that people can implement, utilize, like whether it's stuff that we already teach in coaching, or it's like new things just on a new level or something, or new tools I'm implementing, things that like, how do we embrace all the pain, face it, embrace it, let it do all the things it needs to do that are so brutally painful to learn and grow. So it's like fuel for our growth. And this is something I teach in coaching. The more painful is the better the fuel. Very hard to implement though. And I haven't been put to this test in a very long time. And then it's like gratitude for what was. And I think
Yeah.
maybe I'll end, I think at least my intention with this is something. I reached out to another friend, and he brought something up that Jordan Peterson said, and I was like, "Man, did you just write that yourself? Like, that was brilliant." And he's like, "Oh, I got it from Jordan Peterson sent me the video." I'm like, "Okay, wow," because I didn't know you had that in you, man. Like, you're awesome, but wow, that was incredible. He was laughing, and it just I want to read this.
Yeah.
This for me, I think for anyone who's watching too, was so powerful, and I felt so seen. And I think it'll be a nice segue into the second part of this that'll get into more like the learnings and the tools um, that might be more applicable for people. But this is what he said is so, so beautiful. So shout out to Tony Moore and to Jordan Peterson. And this is it. It's tough when you fall for someone and you start imagining an awesome future with them. I know it's hard to look into the distant future right now. When someone you love betrays you, and that can show up in many ways. When someone you love betrays you, you go through an ego death because you were wrong about who you thought they were. It destabilizes your past and what you thought was real and true. It destabilizes your present, your state, everything you're currently living, and it destabilizes your future, your dreams, your goals, and what you were working towards and thought would always be, or what thought could be. It destabilizes everything. And then he sent me a lot of beautiful things that were personal to me. But it was just like that right there. I felt so seen. And I
Mm.
just like, that is so true, because it does. It destabilizes the past, the future, and the present. And you have to rebuild in a way that is so brutal. So um, I think a good segue to get my train of thought out here is I wanted to get into maybe, so on the next one, what has surprised me the most,
Yeah.
what has helped me the most, and what have I implemented, and what changes have been made of like getting into all the pain and all the shit. And then when you take that as an opportunity and you grow and you step up and you don't revert back to where you were before the relationship, and you let it be like a rocket booster, and get into that stuff next time, I think will be really nourishing for us to talk about, and
Yeah.
exciting for other people, and really useful to honor the time, because we're at 39 minutes almost. So
I love
what
it.
do you think though, man? Any other thoughts or any other ideas or?
No, I'm excited to revisit this and not to continue. I think because, as you said, it's a full cycle, um, and we've really just gotten to being in it, and actually talking about, as you said, like
Mm,
the patterns that have been useful, the resources you've used, and the things that people can connect with in making this a powerful um, aspect of change on their journey, instead of something they just look back on with regret or grief, um,
amen.
turning it into another masterpiece along the journey of evolving into who we are now, who we desire to be.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Thanks for the time.
All right, man. Thank you, man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds great. I
See you,
appreciate
everybody.
it.